Welcome to the Southeast Retirement Planners podcast, where we will go beyond the balance sheet with our guests, not only to share from our personal experience as financial advisors of over 25 plus years, but also to learn from our guests about the issues and topics that are important to them. Our firm specializes in taking care of the financial plans for individuals and small businesses by helping our clients identify their individual goals and taking a conservative and ongoing approach to helping accomplish them. We are located in Hickory, North Carolina, and look forward to continuing to serve our clients and our community. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy this week's episode. Welcome to another episode of the Southeast Retirement Planners podcast. I'm so thankful and grateful to have a good friend of mine, Eric Fulcher, on the podcast with us today. Eric has been a good friend for a long time and a mentor to me as well. And also, in addition to that, great guy, great father, great husband, as most would attest to.
Wow, thank you.
But also a really great leader here in Catawba County. You've been in this area for a long, long time. And have recently, just a few years ago, brought a new manufacturing company to the area. And with that, I'm sure came a whole lot of challenges and a whole lot of thoughts and processes that needed to be put in place. And that's really what I wanted to talk to you about today is just kind of the idea behind that, how that came about and all that sort of stuff. So we'll cover a little bit of that as we go. But thank you for being here, and I appreciate you taking the time. Yeah. So, Eric, we've worked together for several years now, through a variety of sort of different things, whether we've been doing some financial planning stuff together or working on Bible studies and figuring out how to have better relationships with others and better leadership in business and that sort of thing. And you've been through a bit of a transition period professionally over the last handful of years, where you had been in banking, I guess, for a while, and then moved to the manufacturing side of things, and then decided to do something that was maybe a terrible idea at the time.
A little different, certainly taking risk.
Yeah. So
risk
how did
is something I'm comfortable with. So
how did that? Let's kind of get into that a little. Maybe
sure.
Just background a little on.
Yeah. So I didn't grow up in this area. I grew up in eastern North Carolina, a little town called New Bern, down towards the coast. But I married a girl from here. And so that's how I made my way west from New Bern to Hickory. But I've been here for about 31 years, actually. It'll be 31 years in September. I did start out in banking. I've always had kind of a creative side of me, and was fortunate enough to get connected with the folks at Bernhardt Furniture Company back in, the late 90s, I guess. So that's really where my furniture experience started. So that's probably 25, 26 years of experience in the furniture business. From there, I kind of looked around. I was at Bernhardt for a long time. I think the takeaway there was really just meeting the Bernhardt family. And that's really one of the things that kind of gave me this idea that became Design Foundry, this idea of giving back. And the Bernhardt family are just, they're wonderful people. I had other role models in my life kind of along the way. The Shuford family and what they've done in this community over many, many, many years. Paul Thompson's probably another one of those guys that was a role model for me as it relates to giving and kind of sharing what you have back. So kind of fast forward, I guess, the driver behind the company or the organization that we created was this whole idea of enhancing people's lives and giving back. And that was really sort of the foundation of Design Foundry. It was not something that kind of just popped in my head. I guess it's something that's kind of been growing there for a long time.
Well, interesting, though, that for those people who don't know, the Design Foundry is a furniture manufacturing company here in Catawba County. And you employ how many people?
About 140.
Right now. So you've been hiring relatively new. So how many years ago did you launch
so we started
the company?
in April of 2019. And I probably need to back up a little bit. And the Design Foundry, we don't call ourselves a company. We call ourselves a community.
Yeah.
really the
I was gonna get into some
foundation.
of that,
Yeah, the
right.
foundation of everything we do is to enhance the lives of those in our community, and we do that by helping create home.
So we'll come back to that.
Yep,
Okay.
that's fine.
Because I think that's a real differentiator in terms of what you do and then the space you do it. I mean, the idea of furniture manufacturing is nothing new to our area.
Totally. It's an old line business in this area, right? It's an industry that's been around for, golly, 150 years in this area. So yeah, we're putting kind of a different spin on a very traditional manufacturing industry here in Western North Carolina.
Yeah. But in order to get there, you had to make some pretty key decisions, change some ways of thinking. So tell me, I'm going to paraphrase just a little bit, but your background with your previous furniture and manufacturing company, at some point you felt kind of a pull to leave that company.
Yeah.
And that was that. I mean, you left the company. And then you had a little bit of a sabbatical for a while, which gave you a chance to maybe, I don't know. I mean, all this stuff you say has been brewing for some time, but it's not exactly the path of direct connection. Like, I'm going to go from this to this to this. You ended up really just kind of taking a timeout for a while and then built a company from the ground up.
Yeah, I guess I was fortunate enough to be able to take a timeout. And I think that's probably, not everybody has that blessing. And it was certainly a blessing. It didn't feel like that at the moment because you said I left them. I think that's probably you can argue that a little bit. Did they leave me or did I leave them?
I remember.
But that's okay. Again, it was a blessing all the same. And isn't that kind of the way it goes? Sometimes things that are blessings in our lives, we don't really recognize them as blessings when they're happening. But after the fact, you can certainly look back and say, yeah, that was God at work. And that feels really good to receive that blessing later on. But I did. I left. I took 2 years off. I did a little bit of consulting in there, but my wife wasn't real happy about that. She was excited to have me around for a couple of years, and I did some really exciting and fun things. For example, we packed our kids up in the Suburban and drove across the country, 21 states in 21 days, and was a great experience. And I went on a mission trip to Kenya and Uganda with my oldest son, who was a senior in high school at the time, and got to really.
What was that like?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, just being he and I are close. We always have been close. I was actually also got to be his golf coach his senior year, which is really funny if you know my golf game.
Team, I'm sure, won't set all kinds of records. Though,
I think we came in second or third in the conference, so we did okay. Fourth in the state, I think. Not that I keep up with those things.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it gave me a lot of time really to reflect and to read and study and pray to figure out kind of where God was calling me to be. And again, as I said, this idea of Design Foundry had been kind of brewing, had been growing for a long time. And it just gave me that moment to sit and think. One of the books that I read was a book by a guy named Simon Sinek. Mm-hmm. And the title of that book is Start With Why. Mm-hmm. And that really had a profound impact on me and just how I think about creating an organization. And that was sort of one of the many pieces that kind of came together during those 2 years. I mentioned risk. I mean, you're taking a risk to start a company. It turned out to be an even scarier risk, and I'm glad I didn't know that a pandemic was right around the corner, or I don't know that I would have done it. But yeah, we took some risk, and fortunately, I have a great retail partner that is a part of our community, and it's been great. But exciting times.
Isn't it interesting that a lot of times when we're at this place of transition from one thing to another, one season to another, and it could be, in your business, different business cycles. It could be in your personal life, different seasons of your life, whether it's, ages of your kids or whatever. or spiritually different seasons in your life. I think that it's really interesting where if we knew on the front end of this transition period what was going to be expected, what the difficulties were going to be, what the obstacles were going to be, we would never do it.
Yeah,
right?
I think you're right. We could have a whole other podcast on kind of personality types, and I'm a kind of believer in this thing called the Enneagram, and I'm a 4, and I'm a dreamer.
Yeah.
That's what I do, and that's really I look back now. That's really what has sustained me my entire life. So I think you're right. But I'm a dreamer, so I don't see the pitfalls necessarily, but I have learned that I need people around me that can see the pitfalls and help us create solutions to be able to either not fall in the pit or get ourselves out of the pit when we hit it. But as a 4, as a dreamer, I don't see that.
It's not on your radar.
Not on my radar.
Yeah.
I see the vision. I see what can be, and then I go after what can be. And again, that can be a blessing and a curse sometimes, but
well, yeah. I'll say for those of us, and we had so many conversations through the years back during that same time, for those of us who are into the details and worry about the risks of things, it's important for us to have people like you in our lives too that go, yeah, I know there's risks, but
what can
this
be?
This is where we're headed.
Exactly.
It's gonna be fine.
Yep.
We're gonna get there.
Yep.
And if we don't, we'll pivot. We'll do something else. But you don't have to have all the answers before you even know what the questions are.
That's
right.
And
that's a challenge for me, certainly. But
that's right. And again, I have a wife that grounds me, and that helps. But I've surrounded myself with people that kind of help ground me too, because that dreamer can get ahead of their skis a little bit.
Sure.
And I've certainly been, I've fallen into that trap throughout my career.
So when you take, I think a sabbatical is not really quite the right way to say it, but you were able to take time off and kind of think about what your next step was going to be. And I think you always knew you want to build something. You want to build a company. You want to build something. But at that point, I think I use the term tactics. So what did you feel like, even though you're a dreamer, you could sit around all day and journal about it and pray about it and think about what it's going to be, but at some point rubber has to hit the road.
Yeah.
So you've got to get this team in place. So when you started first thinking of this idea of furniture manufacturing, who was involved in those discussions? Not specifically necessarily, but how did you think through that?
Mentors that had built businesses before. I felt like that was important to have around me. I think, a godly influence, men of faith that I think that was important. Some were business leaders, some were not. That was really, really important. And then again, building a team around me of folks that have different skill sets, that bring something different to the table. I think in our industry, one of the sins we've committed is kind of recycle a lot of the same talent. And it was important to me to pull some people together in this new community that we were creating at Design Foundry, people that brought a different perspective. And that can be a different perspective in terms of personality type, business experience, ethnicity, I think is another way to get a different perspective on things. And so, it was important to me to start to put the pieces together of folks that just kind of brought a different perspective to the table.
Yeah. So you're building this community now. It's not a company.
Right.
You don't have employees. You have associates.
We have associates.
Yeah. And it's a unique environment. I love spending time over there. I mean, it is a special place to be. And, fortunately, I get to have had a chance to interact with a lot of your associates, from you would be, I guess, upper management in most sort of circles. I guess we would define that. But everyone from your management group all the way to the guys who are helping, build frames and box up cushions to send out and all that sort of stuff. And it's a different environment over there.
It is. And I think that, one of the things we're struggling with in our country, again, we could have a whole nother podcast on that, is unity, right? And I think that you've got to have something that unifies your organization. For us, it's enhancing people's lives. That's what we're there to do. And that's kind of, in our terminology, that's mind, body, and spirit, right? We're about lifting people up and encouraging people and helping people be better.
Okay,
right?
so I know this is a loaded question.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great mission statement, or
Mm-hmm.
that's a good enhancing lives in our community. That's good for your logo and promotional and marketing materials.
But how do you live it?
Right.
Yeah.
So what have you put in place to provide either some direction in there, some accountability in those areas? What is it that you do there that's different?
Well, again, I think that one, really good people around me.
Yeah.
The person that's over what we would call culture and development believes in the vision, buys into the vision, and everything we do follows the vision, right? The way we interview, the application process, the onboarding process, what happens day in, day out in the facility, all of those things have to reinforce this vision. So
you have
it's got to be
someone in place.
authentic, and it's got to be real, right? I mean, people recognize when you're saying one thing and doing something different. It's really apparent, and they pick up on it quickly. You got to do what you say and say what you do. It's pretty fundamental, but it's just critical to maintaining that culture. And we say, and we believe that the culture we're creating trumps everything, right? It's bigger than me. It's bigger than any one person. That's what's the most important thing. This culture of giving back, this culture of enhancing life, this culture of creating home trumps everything.
Yeah, and you're not perfect.
True. Absolutely.
So
There's grace in there.
Yeah,
sure,
right. I mean, that's such a huge part of really kind of build. I mean, we throw around terms like building a culture and far too flippantly, I think, for people to really get a handle on it. But when they know where your heart is, that
Right.
even when things don't quite align, even when things aren't quite going the way that you expect them to, they believe in your motives.
That's right.
Right.
They believe you're real. They believe
They don't
it's
think
authentic.
it's a manipulation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. Again, you've been there. You've been able to experience it. You feel the difference, and you can feel the difference. And I'll give you an example. I was taking some bankers through pre-COVID. Again, they had some upper management folks that wanted to come in and see our community. I was explaining to them, just like you and I are having this conversation here, what we're about, what we stand for, what the culture is built on. And I had my back to our sewing department, and the president of the bank is looking across me to what's going on in the sewing department behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I just saw it." And I said, "I'm sorry, what?" He said, "I just saw it. I just saw what you're talking about." And what he had seen was an older sewer got up, walked around, and came over to a younger woman who was sitting there and put her arms around her and prayed with her there. Now, I know what was going on in that woman's life. He didn't, but that's the difference, right? It's enhancing somebody's life. It's somebody taking the time. Yeah, we have orders. We need to get pieces out. We want to do that fast and on time. But that sewer recognized somebody hurting, walked around, and sat with her for a minute.
Yeah.
And that's real.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in our community, and it happens every day.
Well, and it's not, for people who don't know, it's not just lip service.
It's not just lip service.
I've been in several furniture companies on the floor, seen the manufacturing side of things, and I've never seen anything that looks quite like what you have there.
Yeah.
So just quickly describe what does it look like that's different?
Well, first of all, we're in an amazing facility. It's bright. you've seen it. I mean, it's clean. We've really paid a lot of everything we do has intentionality behind it. Our logo has intentionality behind it. Every workstation is very intentionally set up. Every workstation,
but different than most workstations.
Absolutely.
Where when you've hired people that have come, because the conversations I've had with some of your associates, they're like, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never been to a place like this that has this kind of workstation.
Ergonomically, we've been intentional. Space-wise, we've been intentional. Light, all those things are. So
you have floor, you have flooring.
We built a floor,
a
platform where all of our work centers are. The platform allows us to do a couple of things. One, it gets you off of a concrete floor. It's actually more comfortable than standing on a mat, which you may see in a manufacturing environment. Second thing it does is it allows us to get all of our plumbing and wiring underneath, so there's no trip hazards, there are no things hanging over your head. And then lastly, for folks that are lifting and touching the furniture, there's a lift that's embedded into the floor. So there's you don't pick anything up. You slide it on the lift. The lift raises it up
whether
to the appropriate
whether
level.
you need to work sitting down or standing up, whatever's best for you.
5'6" or 6'4", it works for you. And again, it's the attention to detail.
And every workstation has the person's name.
Yeah, that's a big thing for us. I mean,
right?
We believe life is precious and every life is important and every life is special. So we want to celebrate your life. We do that. There are many ways, but two ways that come to mind is your nameplate, right? Everybody wants to be called by their name.
Yeah.
They want to know that they're known and they're not a number and they're not just a machine, right? They're a human being. So everybody in our organization has a nameplate. We call them by the name you want to be called. The second thing is we celebrate birthdays. I mean, everybody's birthday is a big celebration. And again, that's because we believe life is precious and we want to celebrate your life, Bob Fincher's life, or Cassia Dowdy's life. And that's just how we show that.
Well, and, as if that's not enough, you sent Dan out to find an actual Chick-fil-A ice machine.
Yeah. I mean,
so you have the legitimate Chick-fil-A ice.
It's attention to detail in every way. That's right. We have the actual Chick-fil-A ice machine, and it's a hit. Everybody lines up and then takes home a Design Foundry cup of ice on their way out the door.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
Yeah, so it's attention to detail in the littlest of things.
One more thing that sticks out to me, and I want to cover. The idea of running a company. It's one thing to build it, and you're a dreamer. So you've been able to kind of think through and plan and really vision plan what this looks like. And it's come to fruition. You guys are at a place where this community is manufacturing the furniture, filling the orders, building this culture. I want to come back to operationally, you still have a business to run.
Right.
And so as an owner, as a president of that organization, I want to talk to you just a little bit if there's a couple of key things, just kind of your behaviors, your routines, like what are the things that you do kind of on a regular basis that keep that thing going? That's a part of what you do.
Well, I'll answer your question this way about what do I do? And if you have other questions, we can dig into that deeper. So, what do I do? We talk to our community there about being your best every day when you come in the door. And the only way that I can be my best is I have to prepare before I get there, right? And I got to take time, quiet time in the morning. And that's something I've done. So what's your
morning routine look like?
So my morning routine is I'm up usually by about 5:30. The coffee pot goes on. I don't drink a ton of coffee, but my wife does. And so, and then it's quiet time. And it's quiet time for 45 minutes probably. And that could include just reading. That could include a study I'm doing. It can include just quiet time, prayer time, whatever. If I don't prepare that way, If there is that morning where I'm scrambling and my day doesn't go well, I'm not the best that I can be.
So that's kind of your anchor.
That's the anchor.
Yeah.
And I've played with it over the years and done it and not done it, and it's not pretty when I don't. And so I just have to be ready to be my best when I'm there. The second thing I've done, and I've mentioned it earlier, is having the right people in place.
Oh, sure.
Purchasing, plant production management, production scheduling, having really smart people. I think that's one of the things that I have seen from business leaders that are afraid to have people that are smarter than they are in their organization. And I know I'm not real smart, and I need to have really smart people around me. I encourage, here's the other thing. I encourage our folks to make mistakes. Let's don't make the same mistake twice. But I would rather, make 5 decisions a day and get 2 wrong or 3 wrong than make 1 decision a day and always get it right, because we're going to get more done, right? And if we're all making those decisions, trying to move the community forward, and then we'll deal with the decision that didn't work out so good, right? We'll figure it out. We've learned, and we'll move forward. So I encourage people to make mistakes. The last thing is, it just comes back to the culture, right? Everything we do is, if it doesn't enhance somebody's life, if it doesn't create home, and if we can't do it with excellence, then we're not going to do it. I mean, it's those 3 things. And I have to catch myself sometimes, right? We have a production tailgate every morning at 9:00 outside of my office. And we're looking at the numbers, right? Somebody brings us a report, and it tells us how we did the prior day.
You still got to make sofas.
You still got to make sofas, and we still got to get them out on time. But why do we have to make sofas? And why do we have to get them out on time, right? Because it's about enhancing somebody's life. If we're late, some customer out there has saved for a long time to buy that sofa. It's important to them. We know what happens in your den, right? You're going to welcome a new baby. You're going to cry over a lost parent. You're going to watch movies and read to your kids. It's important. And if we're late, we're not enhancing their life. We're not enhancing their life or the lives of our other customers. So it all comes back to enhancing lives. And we cannot, the numbers are important, but the numbers only tell us how well we're doing to enhance somebody's life. And it's constantly reinforcing that.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I become, Bob, is really kind of a cheerleader around there. I mean, just constantly pointing us back to the vision. And that's how we stay focused.
So my partner Ryan and I had a podcast where we were talking about coaching in life, and whether it was coaching when we were athletes or coaching our kids or business coaches or whatever. And one of the ideas that came up in that conversation was work-life balance, which we both agreed was garbage, and that there's really no such thing as work-life balance, that you only have so much bandwidth, and so something's going to get that bandwidth, and to try to balance everything means that you probably aren't able to do everything well. So how do you, for the sake of not using the word balance, but you've got your morning routine that gets you going. Do you have, are you there till 11 o'clock at night? What is it that you're doing to make sure that you don't really kind of burn it out on that end? When this is your baby, when this is your responsibility, maybe there's a season where, hey, this is where my attention needs to be. But I know you've got a wedding coming up.
That's right. I've got a wedding coming up. I've got
soon.
2 graduations
you got
coming
some
up.
graduations coming up. So you got other things happening in your life.
We've got a lot going on. I heard a pastor say it this way one time in a sermon: "Who are you going to cheat today?"
Yeah, that hurts a little.
It does, right? But you're going to cheat somebody today, because to your point, there's not enough time to get it all done. There's not enough time, right? And so you've got to prioritize the time. I think, why don't we do that? I think it comes, for me anyway, I can't speak for other people. For me, it comes back to trust, right? I've got to trust the people around me. I've got to trust the process. I've got to trust that, you know what, is me being there till 11 really going to change anything? Or who am I going to cheat today? Do I need to be at home because my daughter has something going on at school, right? I mean, that's what it comes back to. Who are you going to cheat today?
Yeah.
And
that steps on toes a little
it
bit.
does, but that's why I start my morning the way I start my morning, right? I got to get the priorities right. That's the reason I get home. Kelly's going to know what time I'm going to be home every night. Some nights are a little later, but she's going to know that, right? And that lessens the cheat, maybe. Right. I don't know. But anyway, I think I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, it does. I think that's helpful for people to know that even in a role like that, where it's got all of your attention, that's where you really want to be spending your time, especially when you're trying to build something from the ground up, that there are going to be things that suffer. And so you've got to find a way to either get back to those things or slide the needle one way or another.
And that can be a season. That can be a week. That can be a day.
Yeah.
And there are those days. It's not perfect, but it's always coming back to, what are the priorities? What is the vision? And how do we put steps in place to make sure that we can follow that?
One of the questions that I like to ask when I have a guest on the podcast is, what is the worst financial decision or piece of advice you've ever been given? What's the worst financial decision you've ever made?
We had a conversation yesterday. You mentioned that one. The best came to my mind.
I didn't ask for the best yet.
I know. I'm going to get there, though.
Yeah.
The best came really quickly. It was easy. The worst, I don't know that I've gotten the worst advice, but what I have seen is how not to do things, right? How not to allocate your time. And I won't get into who have been some of those examples in my life, but there have been. How not to spend your time, right? How to cheating the wrong person at the wrong time. And I've had those examples around me, so I've kind of learned, man, I don't want to make that mistake.
Well, have you ever been approached with the, here's a business idea for you, and I need some seed money, or you want to get in on this, or that kind of thing?
I never have. I think there was a period of time in my life when I thought I was smarter than the experts in the market, and I could buy low and sell high, and I've lost a little bit of money that way. But no, I've never really had that experience where
That's good.
I just made a really bad, and the other thing, again, I'm a dreamer and I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I made one move in my career at one point in time where I could probably look back and say, boy, that was a huge mistake. But I choose not to see it that way.
Sure.
I mean, I choose to see it. But what did I learn in that maybe failure, if you even want to put that label on it? What did you learn?
It probably was at the time.
It probably was. And you know what? To be honest with you, sitting here talking to you, I mean, I was chasing money at that point, right? I wasn't chasing a vision. I was chasing money and a title. And boy, once I got there, I mean, literally week 2, I felt like I'd sold my soul, and I knew that I'd made a mistake.
Yeah.
And so now what do I do with it? And how can I learn from it? Don't make it again.
Yeah. All right. So the easy question was then, what's the best
the easy
question you've ever made?
People, probably the best advice I ever got was saving early. Right? Saving money.
We've talked about that
early, and you and I have talked about that. And that came from my parents. That came from others around me to save early. It's never going to be as easy as it is right now, right? And Kelly and I were young. We both had careers, no kids, and we saved. In fact, I mean, I maxed out on my 401k every year, the most I could put in. That's what I did. for the first probably 5 years of our marriage, we were blessed to be able to do it this way. But my entire paycheck, we saved.
Yeah.
That money was seed money that's paying for my children to go to college right now.
Yeah. Isn't that cool how that works?
And it's just, and I've seen you've supplied me with graphs because I want younger people in our community to understand that. But man, it's just magic, that saving early. And I think the other thing that I have learned that was good advice, and it came way later in life, is the power of giving. I didn't realize the power of giving, really sacrificial giving, until Paul Thompson came in my life, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. The power of giving away, expecting nothing back, and doing that in a sacrificial way brings so much joy.
I love
and
it.
It teaches you to trust, right? When I don't know how I'm going to cover what I committed to, and it's provided, it's powerful.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I think we're gonna end it there. There's a lot more that we could talk about. In fact, I would love to have you back.
Sure, absolutely.
I'd like to dig in a little bit more on what you guys did through the pandemic and how things changed.
Right.
And I think we got a lot of other things that we can cover. But thank you again for spending time with me today.
Thanks for having me.
And I appreciate you. And for everybody who's tuned in and who's listening, we want to make sure you go on our website, seretirementplanners.com. And you can find out information about our podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to our newest updates. We're also on YouTube. Subscribe, like, and subscribe, all that stuff. That really helps make sure that we know what we're doing is having an impact. So thank you for your time, man. We'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
Thanks. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member of FINRA, SIPC. Southeast Retirement Planners is not affiliated with LPL Financial or registered as a broker-dealer or investment advisor.